Well, good morning. We're in the month of June, the time when the sun comes up early and stays up late in Upper Michigan. Take time to enjoy it. One place you might want to do that is in Manistee in Schoolcraft County on the northern shore of Lake Michigan. We'll find out more about that community starting right now.
From TV6, this is the Ryan Report. Now here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, according to a website from the area, Manistee and Schoolcraft County are peaceful places where no one rushes and no one rushes you. It's a piece of vintage small-town America where you leave your stress behind at the city limits and mellow out with a variety of fun-filled activities and events. And it has interesting places to visit, like the Big Spring at Kitchity Kippy at Palms Brook State Park. But like the rest of Upper Michigan, creating jobs and economic development is a never-ending task. Today we'll find out about Schoolcraft County's success stories and challenges as we talk with the person in charge, Alan Barr, the Executive Director of Schoolcraft County Economic Development. Alan, welcome to the Ryan Report.
Oh, good morning and thank you.
You know, I really do like the Big Spring at Kitchity Kippy. It's one of my favorite places.
Isn't it gorgeous?
It is.
It's a magical place, and people, find it astonishingly beautiful.
Especially on a nice summer day. So you're, first of all, a Manistee native, right?
I am.
And you're a proud Emerald graduate. In fact, you were valedictorian of your class, I think.
Yes, I was. It's been a while, but yes.
Okay, and you went on from there to University of Michigan?
Yes, sir.
And I think you had a degree in philosophy and English lit. I mean, did you have some other career in mind when you pursued that course?
Well, I was thinking about law school, wasn't totally sure what I wanted to do, and actually ended up working in law enforcement for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it just sort of happened.
Well, you were away from Manistee for a long time. What was your career path during that time?
Well, I eventually started my own consulting company and was lucky enough to travel and work globally. So did work with some of the big corporations in different states around the country. Organizational development, so helping them figure out how to perform better, create strong boards of directors and high-performing leadership teams.
I looked at the website. It was Creative Change Associates, I believe?
Yes.
And still is, I guess.
Yeah.
And it says we're catalyst coaches and consultants focused on purpose, process, and people.
Yeah, yeah. We tried to simplify for people so they would understand what we do. So we really are catalysts. You know, you can drop us into a place that needs some performance boost, and we automatically start to help with that. We coach people, work with people, leaders, board members, employees to try to help them figure out how they can do better. And then, we're certainly all about process and making sure that the things you do are the right things, they're safe, and also from a process standpoint, take care of the people, make sure that the jobs are what they should be for those folks, and try to help the performance such that people don't have to be let go.
Okay, and if we have time, we'll get back to more of what that organization's
Okay.
about, but let's get focused on what you're doing today. At some point, you decided to return to Manistee, you and your wife, and to Schoolcraft County. What brought you back?
Right about the time I turned 50, we had a dinner conversation that went something like, what do we want to do with the second half of our lives? Where do we want to live? What kind of work do we want to do? And we both said we'd like to go home. We'd like to come back to Manistee and offer the experience and education we've got to see if we can't help make things a little better. So we figured out how to make that happen and made the move back home.
And you didn't have this assignment as economic director at the time you moved back, did you?
Nope, was still running my consulting business full time.
Okay, and I think you took over as the executive director about 2 years ago now?
Yeah, in March of 2015.
Okay. Tell us about the agency. How is your agency organized?
Well, originally it had an executive director and it had a small board of directors, which was primarily government. So the City of Manistee and the Schoolcraft County Board of Commissioners. And it needed a business focus, more business people on it. So over the last 2 years, I've been trying to build the board up. Right now we've got 16 voting members and 2 student advisory members.
Okay.
So most of the various industries are represented now at the table, including government still.
Okay. Before we get too specific on what's happening in Schoolcraft County, let's talk about the UP a little bit, because I know you're involved in some other agencies around or in some other organizations around the UP. What's happening with economic development in Upper Michigan? What are the good things?
Oh, I think there are a lot of good things, and I think first and foremost among those is the realization that we need to collaborate, that you can't be an island in any of the counties or any of the cities. And so we've got the Upper Peninsula Community Development Collaborative that works at focusing on community development, health and welfare in communities. We've got the Upper Peninsula Economic Development Alliance, which does economic development UP-wide. And then the recent announcement of a new UP-wide economic development organization about a week ago by the governor to really focus and put some of our larger businesses at the table across the UP and some funding from the private sector to work on projects that affect all of us. You know, our economies are completely tied together up here. None of us are large enough, with the possible exception of Marquette and Marquette County, to really be effective and be healthy and be sustainable by ourselves. And so we need to work on those big issues that face all of us.
As one who's been involved in some of those organizations myself, you know, I have kind of mixed feelings. I think the objectives are good, but I have concern about whether or not those objectives can be realized. How realistic is it that the UP can work together? And I know we can support sports teams and we love each other.
Yeah.
I don't mean it that way. But when it comes to things like economic development, we're so diverse and so spread out.
We are, and I think it's going to be a learning curve. You know, I think that we'll stumble a few times. I think we'll have some small successes, I hope, early on. And ideally, we would build on a small success to say, hey, okay, we pulled this off. Let's go after the next bigger piece. I think with the state behind it, I think with our big businesses behind it, I think if we all get behind this effort, and I hope we do, I think it will be successful. You know, but I'm an optimist. So
you know, and I think when people think about economic development, they think about chasing some big factory and bringing it to town. But really, one of the big issues is having talent available locally, isn't it?
Oh, that's a huge issue, I think, for all of us, to find the right talent to put in the jobs we currently have open. So, you know, it's almost daily that you talk to a potential employer and they say, look, I could use an electrical engineer, or I could use a good shop foreman, or something like that, or a nurse. And we've got shortages in a lot of these jobs. You know, we don't have enough plumbers right now. We don't have enough electricians. And so finding qualified people and maybe building that talent base is a huge issue across the UP.
Okay. We'll talk specifically about what's happening in Schoolcraft County in just a minute. Back with more on the Ryan Report after this break. We're talking this morning with Alan Barr. Alan is the Economic Director in Schoolcraft County. Let's talk about Schoolcraft County, some things going on there. You have something called the Zeller Training and Education Center. Tell me about that.
That's a really amazing story. It was a closed prison, so we had a medium security prison in Manistee for a few years, and more than a decade ago the state had shuttered it, closed it. And so it had sat there and sat there, and finally the Zeller family bought the property. And our school superintendent, Mary Ann Body, called me and said, hey, could you get me a meeting with the Zellers? I have an idea to turn that into a school. And I thought, God, that could be brilliant. Let's get this going. So we sat down together and she worked out a deal to use one of the wings of the building, to remodel one of the wings of the old prison building and create a space for the alternative school so that those students could be closer to the main campus. They could walk to sporting events if they wanted to be an athlete. They could walk to some of the other school programs, and it's been a huge success. And now it's leading to other possibilities of maybe CTE training center there.
Okay.
We've got intermediate school districts, 2 of them that are interested in partnering on projects with that. The Zellers themselves are interested in maybe creating a timber products training center where they would partner with the machine companies, the John Deeres and the Caterpillars of the world, and perhaps put some simulators in there and let people learn how to run that equipment before they're turned loose in the woods with $1 million piece of hardware.
Okay, it's real possibilities there.
And it repurposes a building that just sat there, and so I think it's a win on so many levels.
One of the real success stories, and again the Zeller family comes into this story as well, is the Manistee paper. Now, Manistee paper, I believe, had been in business maybe 150 years. It goes back a long way.
More than 100 years. Yeah.
More than 100 years. And they had their ups and downs, and they were taken over by another company, I think around 2012 or something.
Yes.
And that lasted for a few years, went out of business. It appeared that that Manistee Paper was gone, and yet it's not. It's back up and operating. How did that all come about?
So the Zellers bought the property. It was a prime piece of property, industrial site. It's on the river in Manistee, and so it has a lot of value for a lot of different purposes potentially. And they brought in a consultant to go through the mill and figure out what it might be worth if it were scrapped. And it just so happened we lucked out. He saw the equipment, paper making equipment, and he said, this is in great shape. We could make money here as a paper company again. And so he convinced the Zellers to let him help them find some investors. And they got a couple of folks together and they created UP Paper. And they simplified their paper making model. They make only brown craft paper now instead of 40 or 50 different types of paper. They use almost no chemicals now in the front end of the process, so they're not as harsh on the environment. They are really doing well. They've got some contracts where McDonald's and Hardy bags are made with their paper. Amazon, the brown packing paper in those boxes now, some of that comes from Manistee. And they've got over 90 people employed again. Great jobs, great benefits. It's a huge success.
I think one of the fascinating things about it is typically companies like that have to have connections. I mean, have to be connected to a larger company, you know, that's somewhere else. But this is really a local company that's doing it out of Manistee, right?
Totally local. So the Zeller family owns the equipment, owns the building, owns the real estate. And the investors, of which they are part, own the operating company that makes the paper. And they buy recycled paper, bring it in, and make their paper and sell it. So it is completely local.
And I assume a lot of pieces, a lot of people had to come into play to make this all work out.
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, you'd have to give shout outs to our elected officials at the state level. The late John Keevala, Tom Casperson, Tom Zaid, Marty Fatante, Dave Nyberg from the governor's office all played a huge role in helping us get the attention from the state and some money guarantees from the state that made this work. Fifth Third Bank stepped up. Local officials gave a tax abatement to make it possible. So it was really I call it a total team effort. I think that a book ultimately should come out of this. It's a great example of how to make things happen with a huge group of people from all over the UP, really.
And it appears it's on pretty solid footing now, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, they're making enough paper to be sustainable, and they're soon to be making enough paper, I understand, to be profitable. And that's where we want them to be. And the model suggests, and they're right on pace with the model, that by July, everything should be 100%.
Okay, we'll see what else is going on in Manistee in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on the show after we take one more break. Once again, this morning we're talking with Ellen Barr from Schoolcraft County, Director of Economic Development in that area. We've talked about some success stories. What about the future? What are the building blocks for future success in Schoolcraft County?
Well, if you talk to anybody that does placemaking to help with tourism and business attraction, they would say that we've got some resources that almost nobody else has. We've got Lake Michigan, so we have 47 miles of beautiful shoreline. And communities would kill, basically, to have that kind of resource in your backyard. We've got acres and acres and acres of federal and state forest land. We have 147 miles of groomed trails, the most in the state. And so we've got all of these natural resources, the outdoor resources that can attract companies, but people as well. And so we've really focused recently on attracting tourists. You know, we've been a tourism-based economy for many years up here at most of our communities. And it's an easy, fairly simple way to get a few more people in and spend some more money, spend some more time, and then they go back and tell others that, hey, I had a great time at Kitchitikipi or Pictured Rocks or Tequamanon Falls. Let's go back and let's bring some friends. So,
I know one of the things that you've been working on and others in the community is bringing some of these groups together, because you've had a separate chamber, a separate tourism group, a separate economic development group.
yeah.
Where does that stand today?
Well, I think that's another success story. The premise we started to talk about 2 years ago was that we're fairly small in terms of population, we're fairly small in terms of money resources, And we're certainly small in terms of great board members, you know, having enough people to sit on a board and really drive an organization the way you would like. And so if we could come together under one roof, you know, we could combine those resources, leverage all of that, and maybe do a better job to raise the quality of life for everybody. And so that was kind of an ongoing conversation, and eventually got a lot of traction when our Chamber of Commerce ran into some difficulty last year. And so we've managed to pull all three organizations together under one roof, one executive, one board of directors, and we are really working now, I think, more strategically to make some good things happen for the people of Schoolcraft County.
Planning a good summer for this, if it ever arrives, as far as the summer tourism season goes?
We really are. We opened our Welcome Center 3 weeks ago. We've had a lot of walk-in traffic. We've had a lot of phone calls. We've had emails coming in, people asking, hey, where can I stay? Where could we canoe? We've got a brand new canoe and kayak livery right on the river in Manistee that I think is going to do huge business. Our tourism was up tremendously last year, so they saw a 50% increase at the Big Spring Kitchita-Kippy. And so we're expecting a lot of people to come through again this year and to spend some time. And we're deliberately targeting that tourism industry with a couple of different campaigns.
And I'm sure you want to invite everybody to come to Manistee or to Schoolcraft County.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We've got hotels, motels, we've got lodges, resorts, we've got cabins and homes to rent. And we're the quiet side of the Upper Peninsula. So if you want to unplug a little bit and really enjoy nature and yet take some gorgeous day trips, stay in Manistee, but take a day and go to Munising and take the boat cruises and see some of the falls. Take another day and go to Newberry and the Tequamanon Falls. You know, we're about an hour from all of the major attractions, and so spend a little quiet time, but also see everything else while you're here.
I know you're also an involved kind of guy, and looking at your history, you've been involved with, at one point, the Red Cross, Habitat for Humanity, the Boy Scouts. I saw you recently on a Boy Scout story. Let's just talk about the Scouts for a minute. How are Boy Scouts doing in Upper Michigan?
We're doing well. We're doing well. I'm the district chair for the whole Upper Peninsula district. Our numbers are holding steady and even climbing a little bit, which is great. And it's an awesome program for young boys to become young men. You know, my dad's been the Scoutmaster in Manistee since 1971.
Really?
And his theory has always been, you know, we're here about creating the leaders of tomorrow, that next generation of leaders that will come after you and come after me and do the community work wherever they might live.
And I think you were just celebrating an anniversary of the Boy Scout camp.
50 years, hard to believe, but 50 years it's been there, and it's a fabulous treasure. A lot of people don't know it's there, but it's near Munising. It's in the Autrain Basin, and there are over 800 acres. It's got a gorgeous lake with an island in the middle of it, so we can do all the water sports, and it's a nice place for the Scouts to go.
We have only 30 seconds left. If people have some ideas that might help Schoolcraft County, just give you a call. Is that it?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm happy to talk with anybody anytime.
Okay. We'll be back with more on the Ryan Report after we take a break. Well, perhaps I'm just getting too old, but some of the things that pass for fashion today leave me wondering where we're headed. This morning, let me take you back a few years, as I often do, maybe even more than a few years. When I was a teenager and even a young man, when you bought a pair of jeans, you didn't have a lot of choices. Jeans pretty much came with a fairly heavy denim that was actually kind of stiff when they were new. As time went on, Levi and other manufacturers decided it might work well to pre-wash the jeans, and ultimately they became even more popular than the unwashed variety. They also added some other shades, including a lighter colored denim and some made of stretchy material. None of these changes could be described as radical, and jeans continued to be popular apparel for men and women. But then things began to really change. I was out somewhere a few years ago and noticed a young woman in jeans. I said to my wife, "Look at that poor girl. She has to wear jeans that are ripped and torn. It's too bad she can't afford a new pair." My wife explained to me that they were probably a new pair. That's the way they were designed, with rips on the knees and on the thigh part of the leg. I said, if that's the fashion, I could probably donate a couple of pair to some young woman. I've been some that look pretty much like that, which I set aside to use if I'm painting or doing some dirty work around the yard. In any case, I thought things had certainly reached a low point when they started selling women's jeans that were already tattered and torn. But I was wrong. It turns out that Nordstrom and perhaps others have debuted the latest thing, dirty jeans or muddy jeans or whatever you want to call them. And not only do they look dirty, they're selling for $400 and $500 a pair and more. I'm serious. And understand, this isn't a matter of having just a hint of dirt on the fabric. Nordstrom describes them as heavily distressed. One of the news reports said they have a shiny sheen as if they were dragged down a filthy hill and left in a wet ditch. I saw a pair on a Today Show report, and they don't just look a little dirty, they are filthy. Now I'm really going to dig out those jeans I had put aside for painting. Well, as they say, just about when you think you've seen or heard everything, someone takes it up another notch. Dirty jeans are one thing, but now a company from England called Topshop has come up with see-through jeans. Here's what they say on their website. Think outside the box with these out-of-the-ordinary clear plastic jeans. Guaranteed to get people talking. 100% polyurethane, wipe clean only. I imagine people would be talking if I showed up in a pair of those, and they wouldn't be showering me with compliments. I'll be back in a minute. Well, it's time for us to wrap it up for another week. The Today Show is almost ready to roll. Keep the TV6 website in mind, uppermichigansource.com, to get the latest news anytime, and to watch this show if you miss it or want to watch it again. A lot of past episodes are also available. Thanks to Ellen Barr for being here this morning to give us his perspective on UP economic development with some insights into what's happening in Manistee and Schoolcraft County. And thank you for joining us. Hope you have a great day, and will join us again next Sunday morning.